What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the reincarnation of Gridiron Entertainment, the official podcast where we talk about football and football only. I'm Omar,
And I'm Mo.
and we are back. It has been too long since we have talked to you guys. We are so sorry about
Yes.
that. Life has really caught up with us, and a lot of things have happened in our life in the past 2 years. But we're back. And, we haven't forgotten about football. We've always watched football. We've kept up. We're always updated on what's going on in the league and college football and even in the NFL. So, we know our stuff still. It's not like we forgot everything that happened. Mo, how you doing? It's been a while. What's going on?
I know I'm very, very excited to bring this back. I really missed doing the podcast, but we've been very busy. But I think it's the perfect time to do it since we're right about to start the 2023 college football and NFL. So I'm very excited for that. And we're actually 2 days away from week 0 college football. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too. We're there, and we have about 3 weeks until the NFL starts, which we're all excited about. Fall time is my favorite time of the year. I know it's your favorite time of the year as
It
well.
is,
We're
yes.
finally almost out of the summertime, so we're just that close. We're very, very close, and we're just at the finish line. So I'm just very excited to bring this back, and it's been long overdue. I mean, we have to do this. Like, it's just been so
Yeah.
long. You
And
know.
honestly, this is probably I know we say this every year, but this has probably been the longest off season ever. The most drawn out off season ever.
Oh
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Oh yeah, a lot has happened since. So let's just get started with what's going on in the league. Really, the big news is Jonathan Taylor out of Indianapolis. He wants out, and Jim Irsay is giving him until Tuesday to find a trade partner to send them away from Indianapolis. And now there are 6 teams that are interested, and now 2 teams have made offers to the Colts, in which the Colts denied one of them, the Miami Dolphins trade, which is one of the teams. And the second team, it looks like it's rumored to be the Chicago Bears. So, Mo, I want to ask you, where do you think Jonathan Taylor fits the best at?
Well, before I say, I just want to say, this has just been an absolute mess. He wanted out. He wasn't they weren't paying him. They said that they were going to keep him, and then now he's back on the trade rumors. It's just been an entire mess. And as far as teams, I although they did decline the Dolphins trade, I still do think they're in this. I still do think they're a very um, big chance for them to land Jonathan Taylor, and it'll make that running back room even better than it already is. I do also think the Bears, unfortunately, are in the running. I also heard the Broncos are interested,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be interesting because Javante Williams, he got a torn ACL, so I think that'd be. I mean, I think he's still a great player, but I think Jonathan Taylor would definitely bolster up that offense.
Yeah, I do too. I just think with the Broncos, they have a liability in Javante Williams, and they really need to get the run game going to take the pressure off of Russell Wilson when he needs to take the top off the defense. I also think Miami's their running back room is really weak right now. They just lost Devin Akne for a few weeks, so that's a big injury. Rookie out of Texas A&M got hurt over the preseason about last week, a couple weeks ago. And, Raheem Mostert is currently their starter on the depth chart. And I really don't think they want 31-year-old Raheem to be the starter there. I just think with him there with Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill, I just think that he would just make that offense a lot better. And it would just take the pressure off of Tua as well. So, you would just have that. You don't have to be one dimensional with the passes. You can also run the ball, which gives the Dolphins another scary asset on their team. Chicago is really an interesting one just because they have the most cap and they have the most draft capital. So definitely Indianapolis is going to look into that. And, I just really see him as a fit in Miami. It's just because they don't really have a solidified RB1. And I think just with him there, it'll just give the Dolphins, a much better chance in the stacked AFC East because they have the Packers there and Rodgers on their tail. And they also have the Buffalo Bills who are looking to get back into postseason and try to make a run of some sorts. So that's what I think about. I think Jonathan Taylor is still a top 5 running back. I think he's really good. I know he had a down year last year, but that's just because they really relied on him so much just because of the quarterback situation there last season. And, there were a lot of injuries on the offensive line as well. So I think Jonathan Taylor is still top five. And I think if he just can go to an organization where they can use his talents to the most and he can be on a team that has a chance at winning a Super Bowl or making it into the postseason, I just think it'll be a really good fit for Jonathan Taylor. So I really do think the Dolphins are going to be like the top team that gets him for sure.
I do believe that the Colts do want a first round pick for him. And with what's going on with the running back market, I feel like it would be tough for a team to give up a first rounder. I mean, he is a great player, but you never know with running backs these days.
Yeah, I think they really want a Christian McCaffrey type deal.
Yeah,
What the
yeah.
49ers sent over to Carolina to get him. So I think if they can do that, then they'll be in a good. The Colts will be in a good position. But I just think just the handling of the whole situation has just been abysmal. And
Yeah.
they could have done a lot better, especially with like ownership, having issues with him. Which I just didn't like the comments that he said about how the league moves on and everything. It's just not an appropriate comment. So. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think Jonathan Taylor will find it, but he has about 4 days to go, 4 or 5 days to go. So hopefully he can find a trade partner and just get out of that situation because it's just not in a good place to be right now.
He is definitely leaving Indianapolis. I think the bridge has already burned with
Mhm.
how the ownership is treating him. And, I actually think, yeah, he is definitely going to leave, which is kind of sad because, like, Indianapolis,
Mhm.
they had so much potential to build around him after his rookie year,
Mhm.
after how great he did. But, it's just a new beginning. They have to move on. I think it's
Yeah.
best for both sides.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor's still 24 years old and still has a lot left in the tank. Like
Yeah.
he's definitely still like a top running back. So definitely hope to see him move. Next on, let's move forward. The Cardinals have been the talk of the town today. They have made a lot of trade. They made a couple trades today. They traded away Isaiah Simmons uh, to the Giants. Isaiah Simmons in a fifth round pick to the Giants for a seventh round pick, which I thought that the Giants did fleece. Now I'm not saying Isaiah Simmons is this elite player. I think he's still a really good player, and obviously he's playing on a contract here. So I think that he will contribute a lot to that defense. And obviously the Cardinals now, like when you look at all these moves they've made, they traded an offensive tackle today as well. You can see that they're obviously in tank mode right now, and they're
Yeah.
looking to go ahead and go number one, and they're making all stops. But what do you think of Isaiah Simmons going to the Giants? Do you think he'll be a good fit?
I actually do think it will be a great fit. First off, the Giants, they gave up pennies for him. They gave up only a seventh round pick. So even if he doesn't do well, they didn't really give up much for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he will do good. He's very versatile. He could play linebacker and DB. There's not a lot of players who could do that. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think, especially with how great the Giants defense is, I think he will fit really good. And I think he really needs it. I don't think him being with Arizona was working out. And especially now that they are tanking, I think it is good for him to move on.
Also, Isaiah Simmons is on a contract year, so obviously this is a big implications year for him. This is a big, break or bust for him. Obviously, the Giants do have that fifth year option for him. So if they do want him to stick around, they could always place the fifth year on him, considering he was a first round pick. And yeah, I just think that he'll bolster up that defense pretty well. The Giants are just trying to get back to where they were last year, especially with the roster they had at wide receiver. I just the roster they had, no one expected them to compete, and they did, and they won a playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings, who went 13-4 last year.
I mean,
And
I didn't expect it.
I didn't either. I just was surprised that they did. Now, obviously, they did lose to the who did the Giants? They lost to the
The
Eagles, and
Eagles,
they lost
yeah.
big time to the Eagles. But that's just signs to come for them. So Brian
I
Dable
mean,
there is building something.
they, yeah, they overachieved. So like, it's good for them.
I agree
Like
with that.
no one expected, it's a first year head coach. No one expected them to go as far as they did, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Brian DeBall, he's a really good coach. He won Coach of the Year for a reason.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree with
big things,
that. Yeah.
big things happening in New York.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And now the NFC East is not the NFC least anymore, considering of like the teams that are in it right now with the Eagles, the Cowboys, who have also vastly improved during the offseason, and the Giants.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the Commanders are probably the outlier in that division just because they don't really have. I think they have the talent. I just don't think they have the right coaching. And Terry McLaurin got hurt, and that's like a really big blow to them. But he'll probably be back sometime in the season, but he's uncertain for Week 1 right now.
Well, Washington, they just got a new ownership, so I think they're going to take it slow. They don't need to compete now, so I think it's fine. And also, Sam Howell, Which I actually, this might be a hot take, but I do think he will be a decent QB in the league. I don't think he's
Yeah.
going to be as bad as people say. And, I think he's going to be the guy for Washington.
I think he will too. I think he's shown flashes in the preseason game last Monday night against Baltimore, and I can see him being that guy. And they didn't really like spend a lot to get him. It's not like they paid big money to get a quarterback. So even if the Sam Howell experiment doesn't work, there's always next year to go draft a quarterback. So there's that. And speaking of quarterbacks, 49ers quarterback Trey Lance has been demoted from second to third string. Sam Darnold jumping him to be the number two, with Brock Purdy being the number one, it looks like, which I don't blame them because he has been he got him to the playoffs and was one game away from the Super Bowl. Mo, I just want to get your thoughts on Trey Lance. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan told him to go home, take a break, but what does this mean for him going forward?
It's really sad, coming up as a prospect. I really like Trey Lance as a prospect, and especially with how much the Niners gave up in order to draft him to go up all the way. It's crazy. You expect him to be the guy at some point, but last year he played like one or two games. He got hurt. Then Jimmy G played again, and then this year in training camp, he reportedly hasn't been playing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold is now the QB2 over him, and I do think it is time to move on. I mean, he's not gonna. You didn't. I mean, why would he stay as a QB3? I think it is time for him to. You could trade him somewhere. He should get a spot somewhere else. I do think he will because I do think he has the talent to do it. So yeah,
So there are a couple of teams. Before I came on here, I was listening to a podcast. There are a few teams that I think would be a good fit for Trey Lance. I think that, obviously they're an in-division rival, but I think the Rams would be a good spot for him just for like an experimental quarterback, just to see what they got with him. Also, another team, the Broncos. I think just having him there as a backup for Russell Wilson would make a lot of sense, just because, just in case, Russell Wilson doesn't really pan out in 2023, they can see what they got with Trey Lance. And, if they got something with Trey Lance and they are like comfortable with him, they can move on from Russ. I really do think, Trey Lance is really young. He got in a terrible situation, obviously. He got hurt week one. He got an ankle injury, missed majority of the season, couldn't get a starting job back. And, this is the guy that they told Jimmy Garoppolo, like, hey, you go practice on the side. We got Trey Lance. They shunned Jimmy Garoppolo and they
yeah,
traded him away to Vegas. So, I just think that at the time, I thought Trey Lance was going to be a pretty good quarterback. Obviously, not like elite top tier, but if they were actually going to go for a quarterback in the top three, maybe Kyle Shanahan was right to get Mac Jones. I don't know, because he would have done everything that Kyle Shanahan wanted. He got Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant last year, and he got him all the way to the NFC Championship game. And, there's stuff like that where you look at those three draft picks they traded away to the Dolphins. The Dolphins got Jalen Waddle, drafted him. They traded for Tyreek Hill and they traded for Bradley Chubb. So obviously the Dolphins GM is just laughing at all of this just because he got those draft picks and he turned them into something. Like they are all three of those players are big time contributors to the Dolphins. So,
yeah,
I just want to ask you, Mo, where do you think, Trey Lance would fit the best at? Obviously he's done, but where
yeah.
should he go?
Well, another popular team that people have been mentioning is the Buccaneers, which
Okay.
I do think it makes sense. A sneaky team, I think, is the Vikings. I do think the Vikings could get him, and I think that would be a good move because Kirk Cousins, we don't know how long he
Mm-hmm.
could play. I do think him sitting behind Kirk as a veteran, that'd be really good for him.
Yeah.
And I do think when Kirk is ready to move on, I do think Trey Lance would be ready to be the
Yeah.
guy in Minnesota.
Yeah, I like that. I actually, that's a really sneaky team, really good team. Just because Kirk Cousins is getting up there, he's 37 years old right now, and
And
he's.
especially with, there were rumors that the Vikings would maybe trade up this draft for a QB. They obviously didn't do that.
Mm-hmm,
Maybe this could be their time to get a QB,
mm-hmm.
but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fine. Yeah, that's what I think. I think Trey Lance. I mean, he still has a lot of potential. Obviously, still very young. I just think he's just a change of scenery would just be better for him. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, with how the Niners system works, you don't need to be an elite QB to be successful there. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, Brock Purdy,
mm-hmm,
Mr. Relevant, he led them to the playoffs. Jimmy G, they literally went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not throwing shade at Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm just saying he's not an elite QB,
mm-hmm.
and they went to the Super Bowl with him, and they did really good like that year.
Yeah, just you
So
just gotta surround the quarterback with good players, and everything will just work itself out. Like I think the Niners are the best uh adjusters, like during the season, just because by week 5 everybody gets hurt, and then they find a way to just fix everything and just go on a deep playoff run like always. I don't know how they do it, and they don't do it with like the best of the best, like the elites. Like, they got
yeah,
really good players on their team and everyone contributes. Christian McCaffrey has a spot, Debo Samuel. They all play a role, in that offense. And also their defense is elite. They're top tier. I think they're the most talented team, like on paper. When you look at them, you're like, wow, look at this roster. How they not
yeah.
won a Super Bowl? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, I just think the 49ers are always going to be in a good spot. You just have to surround the quarterback with good players. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan likes Brock a lot. And if you got a quarterback that just does that, and if he just repeats what he did last year, then I think the Niners will be in a really good spot going forward.
Well, and even in the NFC Championship against the Eagles, even when Brock Purdy went down, they still kept the defense still kept them in. It was only until like the second half when they
Mm-hmm.
gassed out because the
Mm-hmm.
offense wasn't doing anything. So like, yeah, you're like you said, the Niners, they're a very well-rounded team. They can compete with anyone. It's just that QB situation and also injuries.
Yeah.
Injuries have plagued them, especially last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had injuries everywhere. So man, like if they can stay healthy, they can make a run to the Super Bowl. They're legit contenders.
They are, and they're still very young, and they're still very raw. Obviously, they got to get that Nick Bosa contract dealt with, and that's like really a priority one for them. Because they just have all these big contracts on their team, which I think they'll get it done because Nick Bosa is like a top tier edge rusher in the league. So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah. Mo, I want to ask you this. Obviously Trevor Lawrence took a big leap in year 2. I want to ask you this: which year 2 quarterback do you think will take that leap, that Trevor Lawrence like leap?
Uh, hmm. Actually, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
A year two quarterback?
Mm-hmm. Year 2 quarterback, obviously as a starter. I can give you a few. I mean, I'm not gonna say like who. I'm just gonna give you second year quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett's a second year quarterback. Um, that's pretty much like the
I mean,
one.
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis could. I mean, the Titans are,
There's
that's
only
like
really two QBs to choose from because last year there's only like two like really good QBs
how many how
drafted.
many how many quarterbacks win the first round? Was just one last year? Was just Kenny Pickett that
Yeah,
won first round?
and it was a late first round pick
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. But do you think Kenny Pickett could be that guy that takes that year 2 leap? I mean, I think like with his preseason so far, I know it's just preseason, and we don't really care about that just because they're not playing the best of the best. You know what I'm saying? Every week. You're just playing a bunch of like twos and threes. They're just trying to make the team. But do you think Kenny Pickett could be that guy that can just take that leap?
Absolutely, I do think he can. I mean, he has one of the best coaches in the league in Mike Tomlin. He has great weapons: George Pickens, Deontay Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
Najee Harris. He kind of had a up and down year last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their defense is always great. Steelers defense, they've always been good. But their one issue I have with the Steelers is Matt Canada. I don't like him as an offensive coordinator. I think he should have been gone a long time ago. And I think he's like the only thing that's like making me, not be as high. I do think they will be good. I do think they can be a sneaky team in the playoffs, like a good
Mm-hmm.
wild card team.
Mm-hmm.
But with how competitive that division is, Matt Canada, he has to step it up because if he doesn't step it up, they're not gonna go far.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I really am not a fan of Matt Canada, just like I wasn't a big fan of Greg Roman until we got rid of him during the offseason, which I thought was a
Yeah.
relief for us. And I think that the Steelers need to do the same thing because their offensive weapons are very young and they have a lot of potential to be sneaky for the next, 5 years, let's say. And yeah, but let's talk about another team, the AFC. We're going to move all the way to the AFC East. The talk of the town are the New York Jets. They got Aaron Rodgers over the offseason. Really one of the probably the biggest move of the whole offseason, in my opinion. I think that was probably
Yeah.
like the biggest, and just sent shockwaves to the league. And Aaron Rodgers now goes into a team that has Brees Hall. They just signed Dalvin Cook this week or about last week. They also have Garrett Wilson, who's coming for sophomore campaign, who looks like he's going to have another breakout. Their defense is top tier. I think their secondary is probably like they have probably the best secondary room in the league. I just want to ask you, Mo, what are the Jets' expectations going into 2023?
Well, it has to be a playoff run. I mean, the amount of moves they made, especially in offense. in the offseason. I mean, they have to make a playoff run. I do think they can win 10 or 11 games. I mean, I know their division is tough, but I do think they
Mhm.
can compete. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers as your QB, and he has good weapons. So Aaron Rodgers with good weapons, you know how that does. Their
Yeah.
defense, I really like. Really good weapons. Obviously, Sauce Gardner, Quentin Williams.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and I really like Robert Saleh. I do think they will do good. I mean, I know some people are saying they're going to disappoint, but I mean, I do think it is a possibility, but I do think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so as well. I just think it's just, that team is just way too talented to not make it. And I know Robert Saleh is a really good head coach. And they were really good last season. They were just inches away. It's just quarterback play did not help them as much. And also the injury of Brees Hall last season really did hurt them because Brees Hall did win them a lot of games. The
Yeah.
Jets were really one of those sneaky teams during like the first month of the season that were making some noise. They came back against Cleveland and they got an onside kick and they came back and beat them. And they have the potential and they have the roster ready. They're a good young team already. Like Sauce Garner and Garrett Wilson have matured. They look like they're veterans out there. They don't look like they're second year players. They're playing like it. And I really do think the Jets are going to be really good. One of those teams, the Dolphins or the Bills, will have to have a little small drop off. And I want to really transition to Buffalo because of the whole thing with Stephon Diggs. A lot of people are saying that he's frustrated, which I think it's a lie. I don't think he's mad. I think that Stephon Diggs really likes Buffalo. He signed an extension last season. Like he signed one last offseason. Like, why in the world would he say, "Oh no, I want out"? And his relationship with Josh Allen is still very good. Obviously, they've had their bickering on the sidelines during the playoffs. I know they've had they butted heads, but who hasn't? In those heated moments, it's a big playoff game. It's a really big game. Obviously, there's going to be some, chit chatting. There's going to be some, you know, there's gonna be some arguing, but
The
I just
emotions
want
are high.
the emotions are very high, especially during like big time games. I just want to ask you, Mo, like, what do you think of Stephon Diggs? Like, I think he will stay this year, but if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, win it at all, can you see Stephon Diggs deciding, oh, I'm going to leave in 2024?
I mean, it's really tough to say because, it depends on what happens in the playoffs. There's too many like situations that can happen. I mean, but I don't know why he'd leave. I don't know why you'd want to leave a Super Bowl contender, especially the Bills, with that high powered offense.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see. I don't know where he'd go either. It just doesn't really make sense to me. I just do. I think like it's just people looking too deep into it. They don't really know what's happening behind the scenes, and I just think he's gonna stay as a Bill.
I think he's gonna stay there for good. Like I really don't see him leaving he's now 32 years old. He's going on 32, 33. And I just don't see him going anywhere because the situation there for him is so good. He's a wide receiver one on a really good team with a really solid foundation there that they've had in Buffalo over the past, I would say for the past like 3 to 4 years. Yeah, they've come close, but they're always like they're right there itching. They're one game away from the Super Bowl. They're one game away from going all the way. And I just think Buffalo, all they got to do is just stay consistent because they were consistent for the first half of the season. After that, they took a little bit of a drop off, and I just think that if the coaching, I think it's all really coaching. I really don't know. Really don't want to blame Josh Allen for this. I really think it's coaching. Like they have to get the defense together. Like the offense can score as many points as you want, but when they need to stop, like the defense has to step up in those crucial moments. So I really like Buffalo's chances. Obviously, you can't really not bet on Buffalo. So, but yeah. Mo,
I
let's talk
mean,
about your
I
team.
mean, last year in the playoffs against the Bengals, the offense didn't do good. Like
Mhm.
the Bengals kept them in check. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They just have to fix those problems. They got to get a run game going as well. Really, you don't want to rely
yeah.
on Josh Allen using his legs all the time. We know how athletic he is, but you don't want him just running all the time for his life. And you want to get the run game going. So I think really James Cook has to take that next step going into that backfield and trying to make something. Just make the offense not too one dimensional with the deep balls. Just have a little bit of a balanced offense. So hopefully Buffalo can get that done in 2023. Mo, we have to talk about your team. I'm sorry. We have to talk about the Packers. Obviously, you guys have a good team. You have a new leader at quarterback with Jordan Love. You lost Aaron Rodgers, which is obviously a big blow, but I think for the compensation you got back, I think it was a really good move for you guys, especially for the future. I just want to ask you, what are your expectations for the Green Bay Packers in 2023?
Well, I do think we can be a really good team in 2023. First off, I do think our division, the Lions, they probably will win the division, but I'm not as high as them as people like a lot of other people are.
Hmm.
The Vikings, I don't believe in them. Their defense is still really bad, especially their
Yeah.
secondary. They have one of the worst secondaries in the league.
Hmm.
And the Bears, it's the Bears. Come on, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, I do think Jordan Love will be a solid QB for us. I think
Hmm.
he'll do the job. Uh, he is on a 1 year deal, so he kind of does need to do good, which I do think he will. I really like our defense, especially our front eight. I do think our pass rush is really good. We got Rashawn Gary coming back, who we lost, who was a big loss last year. We also obviously Jair Alexander, and on offense, we have Aaron Jones. We still have good play, and we drafted a lot of receivers. We got Jaden Reed, Michigan State receiver. He's looking really good.
Yeah.
Obviously, Christian Watson, Romeo
Hmm.
Dobbs. We
Hmm.
have a young team. They are unproven, but I do think they can be a sneaky team. I do think we can actually make the playoffs.
Okay, so you mentioned your other division rivals. You mentioned the Lions, the Vikings, and the Bears. I want to ask you, Mo, right now, what are your predictions for the NFC North?
I think the Lions are gonna. I think they're gonna win it. Maybe. I think it's between us and the Lions. Honestly, I don't think the
Hmm.
Vikings and the Bears. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
I think it's gonna be us second, and then Bears third, or no, Vikings third, then Bears last.
Okay. Okay, I like those. So here's the thing with the Vikings. I have a really big problem with them. I think losing Dalvin Cook, it's obviously a big blow, but Alexander Madison is not RB1 material. He's a good RB2. Like I don't
Really?
think, yeah, like I don't know. It's just very difficult to just see because we haven't seen Alexander Madison like really like we've seen him start some games and he is a good contributor, but he's not a Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is like
Yeah.
way above his league. But I really do. I'm gonna go with this. I think the Packers are gonna take the North back. I've seen the Lions. They're getting a lot of hype. I think they're a little bit overrated. I think they're going to be a really good team, but they're getting way too much hype. I think they're a little overrated. And I really do think the Packers do have that experience over the Lions because the Lions really don't play in big time games. You would still have players that have played in big time games like Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, Jair Alexander, who's still top 5 cornerback in the league. He's still really good. You can even consider him top 3 if you want to, and I wouldn't even disagree with you. And I just think that the Packers, they want to prove some people wrong, and I think Jordan Love wants to do the same thing because he's on a 1 year deal. He's on a make it or break it deal. So right now, I think like the Packers have a really talented offense. I think their defense is still really really good. Don't really. I don't know. I don't hear people talk about them that much besides Jair, but I think they have a really good defense. I know they lost some players on defense, but I think they're going to be just fine.
I mean, we always lose players on defense, but they're always fine. Like I don't think it's
Yeah,
like as big as a deal people say.
yeah.
And I mean, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I think Eric Stokes will also take that step as well. I think he's a
Yeah.
really good player. I think Packers 1, Lions 2, Vikings 3, Bears 4. I know the Bears have made some moves. I'm not gonna lie, they have done some things right, but their team is not there just yet. I know they made some moves for DJ Moore, but I'm not gonna lie, that Roquan Smith move, like at first it was like, oh, it's good. They got a second round pick. But then you signed Tremaine Edmonds to a big, like 3 year contract. You might as well just kept Roquan Smith. I don't understand why you got Tremaine Edmonds. That's a big downgrade because Roquan Smith is a lot better than Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah, and also for the Lions, the reason why I picked them to win is because they kept both of their coordinators, which I
Mm-hmm.
think was huge because they both are really good. And I do think after the season they're both gonna get head coaching offers. And yeah, like you said, I do think the Lions are getting overhyped. And the reason why is 'cause it's the Lions. Like they haven't won a playoff game. They have like the longest drought, I think.
Yeah.
Or yeah. And people want them to win. That's why people pick them,
I mean, I respect it. Don't get me wrong. Like I love to see the underdog win, but
Yeah.
I just haven't heard the Lions get this much hype in so long. Like I don't remember the last time they ever got this much hype. So
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, you do think the Packers are going to win the North. I wouldn't be surprised.
mhm.
I do think we can win 10 or 11 games. I think it just depends on how our offense does because I think our defense will be fine. And we do have an easy schedule too, which does help us. So Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mo, we got about 6 minutes, but I want to go through the NFC really, really fast. Just get your predictions on the divisions. Who do you think wins the NFC South, which is like probably the toughest division to pick right now? So I want you to give your top four. Who's going to win the NFC South and, the rest?
Um, Man, first is a toss up between the Falcons and the Saints. I do think the Saints are gonna win it though. I like Derek Carr. I think he's gonna do good things with them.
Mhm.
Then the Falcons really close, and then Panthers, and then Bucks.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Yeah, I think the team who wins this division is going to have like 9 wins. I think a nine
Yeah,
and eight team is going to win it. I really think the Saints are going to be like they just have the most talent, and they got Kamara like on a 3 game suspension. They're going to be just fine. So I'm going to go Saints one. I'm going to go Falcons two. I'm going to go Panthers three, like you, and Bucks four. Like the Bucks are really just getting old at this point, and Baker Mayfield it's kind of hard to trust him. Especially like what is this now? Like his fourth or fifth team? Well, his fourth team now. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's go quick. Let's go NFC East. We got one that.
Oh, this is a tough one. I think the Eagles are gonna win the division.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cowboys are gonna get second,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Giants third, and then Washington last.
I agree with that. I really do think I think the Eagles and Cowboys are the most improved teams so far. The Eagles, they got DeAndre Swift. They drafted Jalen Carter, which everyone's like ahead, like surprised how they got him. And then, obviously, and then you have the Cowboys who got Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore, which are like, I think Stephon Gilmore still has it. And, he helps that secondary a lot. So, I think it's going to be between them. It's probably going to be like one game between them, just depending on Dak's health and how he plays. Uh, you know, and obviously we've seen what he's done in training camp so far. I think Dak's going to be just fine. Yeah, he throws a lot of picks, but he's a gunslinger. He throws like 50 passes a game. So, we'll see how it goes. I really like the offense. I really do think they made a lot of improvements. So it'll be between the Eagles and the Cowboys. And finally, we got the NFC West. Okay, Mo, who you got for this one?
NFC West. The Niners are gonna win it.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Seahawks. The Seahawks are gonna be are gonna be an underrated team.
Yeah.
Like, don't sleep on them.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
then the Rams third, and then Cardinals last.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are going to be the worst team in the league just because of all the moves they've been making right now, and I think they're tanking for either Caleb Williams or to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
But then again, I mean they got 2 first-round picks going into 2024. They got that Texans pick as well, so that's going to be for sure a top 10 pick. Like because the
yeah.
Texans aren't going to be that good, and I think with the Rams. They have their problems. Obviously, it really just depends on the offense. If Stafford can stay healthy and Cup can stay healthy, they'll have a decent season. I just, Cooper Cup's in 30. He's in his 30s right now. He got hurt in practice. He's fine. He should be back. But that injury scares me just because he's hitting his 30s. Usually, when you hit that point in your career, that's when the injuries start to pile up. Matthew Stafford last year missed a lot of time too. So, it's really, really tough to predict the Rams, but I think they're going to finish third as well. Seattle, Geno Smith, if he just takes that step again, he'll be just fine. They got JSN, who I think is going to be a beast, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who
Kenneth
I'm
Walker.
yeah, and they still got Kenneth Walker, who is going to take that next step for sure. And they've made some improvements on defense, which I like. I like the improvements they made. You got Sean Witherspoon out of Illinois, who we don't know how good he'll be, but I think he's top 5 pick, so he should be pretty good. And then the Niners are the Niners. They still have the same team from last year, besides like Jimmy Garoppolo. And now Trey Lance probably out the door right now. But Kyle Shanahan's one of the best offensive minds in the league, and he works his magic with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who by the way is a very underrated wide receiver too. I think he doesn't get enough credit where it's due. Like I think he is really really good, especially last year because he had 1,000 yards.
I think
So
he is better than Deebo Samuel.
yeah, I agree with that. I think he's a lot better than Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo's like a really good gadget player, but I think Brandon Ayuk is that guy. Obviously, a healthy George Kittle helps. Obviously you have the best left tackle in the game in Trent Williams. Who's still amazing, by the way. He's still really good. And obviously we know how good their defense is. So that's pretty much it for the Niners. But yeah, that is the NFC as well. We wrap those up really quick, which is good because I don't know why Zoom says we have about minute 12. So Mo, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Make sure to support us. It's good to be back. We're gonna be a lot more consistent. Football's coming up. We're very excited. We should have a college episode soon, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. Yeah, we're gonna have college episode because next week is really is week 1. Obviously, week 0 is this week. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm Omar,
And I'm Mel.
and we'll see you guys next time.